Retro.
Hi, this is Fred Tatasciore, and you're listening to Dennis and Jay on Podcast Stardust. The Force is strong with both of them.
Welcome to Podcast Stardust. This is the fully armed and operational podcast dedicated to Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. I'm Dennis Keithley.
And I'm Jay Krebs.
And we're going to wrap up this spooky week with a look at some recent Star Wars news. But before we get into that, Jay, I want to remind everybody where we can be found on social media, please.
You got it, Dennis. We are on Facebook and Instagram very conveniently at Podcast Stardust.
All right. The dish is aligned. The ghouls and ghosts are out. The signal's boosted to maximum output. Witch is on her broom. The shield is down. We're now broadcasting to the galaxy. Happy Halloween to all those celebrate. I hope everyone is going to get out tonight with their kids and have some fun, get some candy, hand out some candy, do whatever it is that you do to celebrate Halloween. Jay, you got anything going on for Halloween?
How did you know I was sitting on a broom? That's what I'd like to know. Actually, no, and I'm really bummed about it. We were talking about this just before we started recording, and I feel like October's just been crazy busy. And the other day I was talking to my husband and I said, I have nothing going on for Halloween this year. And that's so weird to me because I'm not like that. It's my favorite holiday. And usually I have an appearance for something for, for cosplay. They're doing some kind of trivia night or doing something for school. And yeah, I don't think I told our listeners that I've retired from teaching, but there it is. Yeah. So not so much news anymore, but at any rate, so yeah, it's just so weird. And we don't have trick-or-treaters around here because we live literally in the middle of a cornfield. So it's very sparse unless we have the children of the corn come around, which I hope we don't. But what about you guys? What are you doing for Halloween?
Not as much as we used to, because of course the kids have grown out of trick-or-treating, a couple of years ago. But it's a pretty active neighborhood. I've got neighbors down the street that really, really goes all out. And so it brings all the neighborhood kids out and then kids from other neighborhoods around here to the place. And so we'll be giving out candy. It'll be busy. I'll put out my Darth Vader pumpkin that I got from Halloween 10 years ago. Wow. It just occurred to me how long ago that was.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So yeah, that's what we'll do. And it'll be fun. The biggest issue I have is just my dogs go nuts with all the trick-or-treaters and stuff. So keep them in line. I'll probably watch the Muppets Haunted Mansion and do that type of thing. But I'll probably get a lightsaber out and use that to greet the door and things like that. I'm not really going to dress up or anything, but
the
it's
pumpkin
fun.
that you have is so cool too. You should dress up your dogs in something Star Wars. That would be fun.
We've done that before. One year, Zeb was dressed up as Ahsoka.
I love that. I remember that.
And he hated it. So that's not true. He didn't like the headgear. He was fine with a little vest type thing that we put on him. So we've done that before, but you really can't take advantage of it because we kind of have to hide him in another room because they just don't like people coming up to the house.
Yeah.
But did you ever do? I think we've talked about this before, but I can't remember the answer. Did you ever do Star Wars costume for Halloween when you were
As a
growing up?
kid, no, which is really weird to me to think about that. No, I always was, whatever my mom and I would come up with, and she would make them. So, it's funny because I've been seeing all of these fun, Gen X Halloween kind of things circulating with the plastic. Remember those plastic masks that we had that were so creepy? And then the plastic, basically like poncho type costumes.
Yep. I had those.
I was very lucky. I had a mom who knew how to sew, which is thankfully where I have gotten, my seamstress abilities from. So she always made my costumes. We always designed them together. But no, I was never anything Star Wars, which is really crazy to me. I guess I saved that until I grew up. So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I had a couple, I think the Ben Cooper costumes, I think they were. And growing up, I think the first one I had was C-3PO. which is
Nice.
just like you said, it's the plastic mask with the elastic string on the back, and
Yeah.
you wear it too long and you build up all that moisture between your face and the mask, and you end up raising it up over your head while you're going from house to house and just putting it down so that because it's all fun when you start, but then after a half hour of that, you get pretty warm in those things. And then one year I did Darth Vader. I did one of those as Darth Vader growing up.
Nice.
My kids did quite a few Star Wars costumes over the years. I think Alec was like every stormtrooper imaginable at one point, from
Mm-hmm.
the First Order stormtrooper. I think he was the flame trooper as well from The Force Awakens, and he's done the Death Trooper and the Sith Trooper, and he did a lot of those. DJ did a clone trooper once. When they were real little. Alec was Yoda and DJ was Captain Rex. That was pretty cool. But
That's awesome.
yeah, I mean, and the costumes, neither myself or Beth have the talent to sew and create that type of thing, but they've come a long way since we were
They
kids.
have, for
And
sure.
Beth one year was doing she was, when DJ was still in high school, and it was I think it was with the orchestra, and there was some sort of Halloween thing going on with the orchestra. She did a really great Jedi costume for that.
That's
And
awesome.
we couldn't find a working lightsaber in the house. This was pre-Galaxy's Edge. So
Oh,
had to come up with something at the last second to help her with. So she was a Jedi using a red lightsaber. That's all I could find.
hey,
But
no, got to do what you got to do.
yeah, yeah.
I know
But
my boys had all of those as well. They were both Jango Fett and Boba Fett. Colby was Captain Fox one year.
mhm,
They've been Jedi. It's all over the place. They had clone costumes, and what was really cool too was growing up on a dairy farm. Even in the summertime, they would put on those outfits slash costumes, and they would go down to the creek and they would pretend, and so they got a lot of love out of those
mhm.
costumes, and we still have them. But so it definitely went beyond just the Halloween, that's for sure. But we have tons of those Walmart type lightsabers still in the basement, the ones that are telescopic kind of thing. I still have a ton of those down there.
Yeah. And then I guess the other thing is we were completely remiss in not acknowledging the 6th anniversary of the podcast a few days ago. I don't
Right.
know how that slipped by. Now, traditionally, what we do is over the course of November, I've got stamps on all the episode imagery that talk about how many years it's been. But the actual anniversary of the podcast is October 27th, when we released our first, I think it was 7 episodes all at once
Mhm.
at that
Mhm.
time. And then but like I said, we traditionally note it in November, but the actual anniversary was October 27th. So hey, Jay, congratulations to us. Happy anniversary. 6 years of podcasting on Podcast Stardust. And here we are in episode 959.
Yeah.
I didn't doubt that we were going to be doing this for a while, but it is just crazy to me to think that we have put out this many episodes over this length of a period of time.
It's so, so wonderful, honestly. I mean, it's gone by so fast too.
Mm-hmm.
But it's easy when we always call it, and you coined it, our appointment Star Wars every week, that we have something to look forward to. It's always on the calendar. It's something that has become just part of our lives. And I think the landscape of the podcast has not only evolved, but it's also changed in such a great way that we've expanded to include so much listenership and so
Mm-hmm.
many great guests over the 6 years. And we've just had so much stinking fun with this. So, they always say time flies when you're having fun, and it certainly has. So congratulations to you as well, Dennis, both of us. Hey, some marriages don't last this long, so,
That's
like,
true.
I think we
Indeed.
must be doing something right, so
Well, I was just thinking back because, back in 2019, this show launched just a couple months before The Rise of Skywalker and
Mhm.
right before the debut of The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
We were a few months off of Star Wars Celebration Chicago, and the scope of what was coming out in Star Wars was just we didn't know. And it's weird to me that in that time we've only had the one movie in
Oh,
the
I
new movie
know.
in theater. We've had plenty of re-releases of Return of the Jedi and Revenge of the Sith and that Phantom Menace. They've all been back in theaters, but The Rise of Skywalker is the only original movie that's come out in the theater since we started all this. But we've had everything that's debuted on Disney Plus has happened since we launched this show, and so
Yeah.
The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, Obi-Wan Kenobi, both seasons of Andor, The Acolyte, Skeleton Crew, the entirety of the Bad Batch, an extra season of the Clone Wars, and then not to mention all the books. We've covered dozens and dozens of new books, plus plenty of old ones that have come along. But so yeah, we've covered a lot of this history in previous episodes and stuff like that. But it just boggles the mind that here we are this far into this, and it still feels pretty new for the most part. And I think it's just because, well, a couple of reasons. One, like you said, it is fun to have this outlet to talk Star Wars, and then two, getting back to go and revisit all the stuff out there. Getting to go through all the Clone Wars and revisit Rebels and dissect the movies a little bit at a time, over the course of a year. There's always something to look forward to when it comes to our usual recording time.
There truly is. And you and I are so passionate about Star Wars, and we always have been, and I feel like we always will be, and I think that our listeners appreciate that as well. So I just want to say hello to any new listeners out there. Hopefully you're enjoying what you're hearing so far and that you'll stay along for the ride. And I have so many people that ask me when I tell them that I do a Star Wars podcast, and they say, "Do you ever run out of things to talk about?" And I said, "Nope, we sure don't. We find things to talk about, and sometimes those things find us, and we get inspired, and there's just different, material that's out there, and we cover literally everything from the books to the movies to the comics to the TV shows to nostalgia to shopping and lifestyle. I mean, we do it all. So, it's so much fun."
Right. And then we have our monthly features that we usually do. Traditionally every week has got a news episode, and then there's on Mondays we've simply been doing the review of either whatever the current show is on Disney Plus, or going back and covering Rebels and the Clone Wars. And then Wednesday's kind of the wild card of the week, and we have the monthly features of World Between Worlds, where you do the lifestyle and fashion products review roundup that happens once a month on a Wednesday. And then another Wednesday we do whatever movie we're celebrating that year. We do a 10 to 15 minute segment and then spend an hour talking about it. And we're going to add another monthly feature. We're not ready to announce it yet. That'll come like sometime in December, probably, when we make that. But I'm really excited for it. It's a way for us to dive in something that is our favorite and really get into detail on it. So be on the lookout for that, and I hope you all will join us for it.
Yes, I'm excited for that too.
Yeah, me too. We just discussed that earlier, and so here we go. But we're 12 minutes into our news episode, and we haven't actually talked about any news, at least Star Wars news. So let's get into it.
Right.
Up first, we have learned that when A New Hope returns to theaters in 2027 for the 50th anniversary, it will also be coming back in IMAX format. This was reported by Polygon from one of IMAX's investor calls. The only question that's left is, which version of the movie are they going to show in IMAX? It doesn't really matter to me. IMAX is cool and all. It's not especially convenient for me, so I don't know if I'll see it that way, but I'll definitely be going back to the theaters to see A New Hope. But what do you make of this?
Oh gosh, I mean, this is so exciting. This is taking us back to literally the birthplace of Star Wars. So there's, like you, though, I don't have an IMAX that's super convenient, but I will definitely drive the hour away that it will take to experience this on the big screen like this. Because, I mean, they did have a couple of the re-releases before, for the special editions and that type of thing. So, obviously, as you just said, we don't know which version this is going to be, but I imagine that it's probably going to be one of the more special edition type of things. I can't imagine that it would be the original theatrical cut unless they do some type of restoration, to it where it makes it more theatrical for today's IMAX viewing type thing. But what do you think?
I really don't know. I mean, there's speculation all over the place about what they're going to do. I'm at peace with the special editions compared to a lot of people. I think I don't mind the additional scenes. If there's one thing that is a little bit off for me, it's simply Han Solo stepping on Jabba the Hutt's tail.
Yes.
But beyond that, I like the new look of Mos Eisley. I like the way that the Millennium Falcon blasts out of the spaceport. and the way they redid the space battles a little bit to make them a bit more cinematic. And I'm all good. I'm good with all that. And we had heard when the was it the British Film Institute? I can't remember exactly what they're called. Had aired an original cut of the film. Some of the comments were like it's like seeing a completely different movie because of how much has been cleaned up and tightened up over the years since it's been released. And sure, that might be cool to see, but I'm just so comfortable with what we've got now that I guess I just don't need it. Is what it comes down to.
Hmm. No, I totally agree with you. Yeah, I think it's funny when you mention the Han Solo and Jabba thing because I know that's always been a little cringy, but it doesn't take away from it. So I'm fine with it too.
Yeah. So we'll see. It's still a ways away. I mean, they announced it with plenty of time, 2 years for people to get their act together so they can go
Right.
see this movie. But I'm hoping that there's an opportunity to see the movie at like the Chinese theater in LA when we're there for Celebration.
Oh,
Uh,
yes, please.
that would be
That
really
would be
cool. I would.
amazing. Amazing.
Mhm.
I'm just wondering
Okay.
what kind of merch there will be. That's, of course, where my brain goes.
Based on how much is available now, I can only imagine that we're not going to want, for lack of merch. There's going to be plenty out there for us in there, and getting stuff stamped with that 50th anniversary logo will
Oh,
be
yes,
huge.
definitely.
So right, and then not to mention the celebration merch for the 50th as well.
Oh,
That'll
yes.
be crazy.
Yeah.
Probably make a bundle off that if you wanted to. Not that I'm suggesting it. Let's all behave. This all doesn't need to be end up on eBay, but
Oh, behave. Yes.
right, right. Okay. Well, moving on. The art of the Acolyte is going to be hitting stores soon, but in an excerpt that was given to Inverse, they had I guess, part of an interview with Leslie Headland, who was the showrunner and creator of the Acolyte, and she had something interesting to say about the Stranger, namely that Chimere, the Stranger, would have become the first Knight of Ren. And the quote reads as, "It was in the design of the character, as well as knowing that we were going to introduce Darth Plagueis, who has to end up with Palpatine as his apprentice. Following the rule of two, a precept that limited the Sith to just two at any given time, a master and apprentice, one way to keep it going is if the Stranger is the first Knight of Ren, part of a Sith-adjacent cult that we know eventually survives." Fascinating. What did you think about
Mhm.
this?
I love it. I mean, the whole idea of the Sith adjacent with the Knights of Ren, because that way it like she said, it does not jumble up the whole idea of the rule of two. It doesn't do anything to that, but there's a great way for this dark side warrior faction to exist.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that is a great origin story, and it's something that I would love to see explored. What about you?
I'm 100% with you. I thought this was a great idea. I mean, look, The Acolyte probably wasn't our favorite. I know it wasn't our favorite Disney Plus Star Wars show. There's a lot of things I liked about it. I thought the fight choreography was awesome. There was some cool things that happened, although the story maybe bogged down a bit and it got a little bit dark and depressing in a few places. But the end of the show, when we got that glimpse of Darth Plagueis and then Yoda came into the picture, had me really eager to see what was going to happen next. And having this as a concept, I think could have just been absolutely amazing.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, it's too bad that it had to get revealed that way, which kind of I think limits some of the things that can happen now with this. You and I were talking offline about some of the reaction to the Hunt for Ben Solo not happening, and yeah, I don't want to get into all that, but just the notion that all this news is out there, it does kind of kill some of the twist surprise type elements that could happen from all of this. And I'm not
Mhm.
saying you couldn't then go ahead and tell those stories if you wanted to, and then come up with other ways of surprising and tantalizing your audience. But it's kind of like, well, you just let that cat out of the bag, which is
Right.
too bad. It would have been really fun to get that reveal in a show or a book or a comic or something somewhere.
Exactly. And I guess I would consider this to be semi-canon in the sense of creator intent kind of thing.
Hmm.
So, I mean, there's a way that the story could potentially be something to be explored, and like you said, in other ways or other media, perhaps.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And the other thing is just is interesting to me is that, look, the stranger is a human as far as we can
Mm-hmm.
tell, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this takes place 100 years before the Phantom Menace. As best I know, Palpatine hasn't even been born yet in this situation. So
Right.
they're really playing a long game
Oh yeah.
with this here. So, not only does Plagueis get rid of Chimere, who becomes the first Knight of Ren, he probably has to have a different apprentice before he takes on Palpatine. At some point, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Palpatine went through multiple apprentices. I guess Plagueis could too.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, that's true.
and I guess it doesn't really say anything about the twins either. What happened to them? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot out there that's kind of loose ends, that's for sure.
maybe they could have been Knights of Ren too. That could be the twist if they ever decide
Ooh.
to. All
All
right,
right,
we got.
Dennis, he's got it. Let's get you on the phone. Let's go.
I've put my stake in the ground here, so you heard it here first if it happens.
There you go.
All right, well, a little bit of book news. We have Master of Evil, the upcoming novel from Adam Christopher, which will be arriving on November 11th, and it talks about Darth Vader in the days after he became a Sith. And at any rate, we've got a new excerpt, which is available on Entertainment Weekly. And okay, this is interesting. I got a lot of thoughts about it here, but I assume you had an opportunity to read this.
Yes.
Okay. What did you think about this overall?
I'm a little torn, I'm not going to lie, especially after having just coming off of our Revenge of the Sith anniversary breakdown and rereading Matthew Stover's novel and everything that we know from the comics and how kyber crystals are bled. And I'm a little bit torn by this story. I'm not going to lie.
Why so?
Well, because it's definitely spoiler alert, right? I mean, this is the excerpt that has been released, but
It's been
it's
out for a couple weeks, so
yeah,
yeah.
and it's
Mhm.
definitely showing the savagery that has to go into bleeding this lightsaber. But I guess and maybe these questions will be revealed in the novel, but I'm wondering why that particular kyber crystal was chosen. And then I also was a little shaken by the fact that this kyber crystal was basically fighting back. It was
Mhm.
almost like it was sentient in some ways and knowing what was happening. And so I guess it was a lot more brutal than I had expected it to be. I mean, I know that the bleeding of kyber crystals is quite the vicious process, but this just seemed really almost personal in a way. And that was it really kind of shook me. I'm not gonna lie.
Mhm. Mhm. So this is not the first time we've actually had this scene. It was first written by Charles Soule in Darth Vader #5 from his run on that comic back in
Mhm.
2017. And he wrote this here. So I was actually very pleased with that this was not wholesale changed, because they've gotten a little bit loose with these type of things in recent years
Oh, I
with,
see what you're looking. Mhm.
yeah, with some canon contradictions between what happens on screen, what happened in books and comics, between books and comics and stuff like that. I'm not saying it's egregiously bad, but there has been some slippage in that department. And anyone who's listened to this podcast long enough knows I am a huge, huge fan of Charles Soule's work, whether it's been
Mhm.
his books, his comics, or whatever. And so I was happy to see that they kept this scene intact. Now, did you notice whose crystal it was that Vader had?
I did, and I had to look him up because I was not familiar with him. Kirak Infila?
Yep. And you've actually read a book he's been in, and that was the Charles Soule's Trials of the Jedi. He was one of the
Okay.
craftsmen of the armor that the Jedi were wearing. He,
Oh, okay.
yeah, he eventually takes the Barash vow, and so he was
Mhm.
absent from the Jedi at the time of Order 66. And so Vader becomes the apprentice to Palpatine, and he lost his lightsaber, of course, on Mustafar. Obi-Wan Kenobi took it. And it
Mhm.
was time for him to get a new lightsaber. Palpatine basically told him, you don't just get one, you have to go take one. And so Vader had to find a surviving Jedi, defeat him, take his saber, and bleed the crystal. And so that's why we've got Karak and Falaz. I'm not going to get into the details of the fight. You're going to have to read those 5 issues at some point. That's not
yes,
going on our list of things. It's a really good story.
definitely.
It's a knockdown, drag out fight. There's all kinds of stuff that goes into it. And then Vader takes it back to Mustafar, to this. They're calling it a locus of dark side power in this excerpt, but it's also been called a vergence in the Force and other places. And this is eventually where he makes his castle on Mustafar and does other things as well. So to me, the question is, Charles Soule's the one that essentially, and as far as I know, if he didn't invent the concept, he was the first one to ever write it and put it into a canon source. And everything that's come with bleeding has happened thereafter. We've had instances where, again, spoilers for other properties here, the Jedi Survivor game, we get to see that Jedi who was basically put into stasis during the High Republic. And once he's freed, he bleeds his own crystal.
Right.
There. And then Osha, I believe it was, in the Acolyte, she bleeds a crystal. And we've had other instances where it's happening. My theory is this was a crystal that Vader took by force. And therefore, and he was using it in a locus of dark side power. And so the crystal was fighting back. And also because he was a Sith, where in those other instances, they weren't necessarily Sith. And in one, they were bleeding their own crystal. So they didn't have that type of resistance. But I loved the scene when I read it in the comics, and I'm really glad it got preserved for purposes of this book and this story. It seems like Adam Christopher really did his homework. I mean, this is not a big excerpt that we read here, but he did his homework and he stayed true to the source.
Well, that makes me feel a lot better hearing that from you as far as, the backstory of this, because I was, like I said, I was a little confused about where this crystal came from, but I was this a Jedi? You said he was in the High Republic. So was he one of those long-lived type of species then?
Yes. Yeah. He's not human. Yeah.
Okay. That makes
He's
sense.
right. I
Like
can't
a
remember if he's a
kafar or
crook
something
or
like
something
that.
like that. But yeah, he's a very pale skinned humanoid looking creature. And when he gives up, he ends his vow. He's getting ready to try and rebuild the Jedi Order, and then Vader shows up. So,
Gotcha.
and Vader has to figure out where a surviving Jedi is, and so he goes through great lengths to do so, and that's who he finds. So that's why he ends up with his crystal.
Oh, that's super cool. I like that. And I like the fact that ties in the other story. And like you said, it keeps it true to its source too. So that makes me feel a lot better. So glad we talked this out.
Yeah. I'm super excited for this book. And I'm looking forward to getting my hands on it in a couple of weeks. And of course, we'll be covering it at some point, most likely on the podcast. We enjoyed Shadow of the Sith that Adam Christopher had written previously, and then his short story in from a certain point of view, Return of the Jedi, that he wrote about Allegiant General Pride, who had become Allegiant General Pride at the time, and how he was trying to become the next leader of the Empire after he found the remains of Vader's lightsaber in the fire. But I think he writes well, and I enjoyed his work, so I can't wait to get my hands on this.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. We don't have to wait too long.
Nope. I got to read the other book though that came out, the one about Jaina and Finn. So I'll try and crank that out between now and then, and we'll evaluate whether we're going to cover on the show or not. But I have a feeling we're definitely going to be excited for Master of Evil, but we'll see.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, then that's it for the news. Thank you all for joining us and indulging us as we talked a little bit about Halloween past and Star Wars and the anniversary of the show, and covered the few stories that we had for the week. We hope we've had a good time and enjoyed the discussion, and we'd like to invite you back. So on that note, please consider subscribing to the podcast if you haven't done so already, and you'll get all those features that we were talking about earlier in the episode. Whether it's you're interested in the lifestyle and fashion type items, which Jay rounds up in Roll Between Worlds, or our monthly movie segments that we're talking about, the weekly look we do at the news, revisiting the Clone Wars, which is going on. We're in the middle of season 3, or actually at the beginning of season 3 right now. All that stuff. We're getting ready to talk about Visions. and I'll fill you in a little bit later about what's coming up in the next couple episodes. But with that having been said, make sure you head over to retrozapp.com where you can catch everything that's on the podcast network and all the other great shows that are there, plus all previous 958 episodes of our show. Jay, one more time for good measure, I want to tell everybody what our social media contacts are and where else we have set up online.
Absolutely. So we're super easy to find. We are at Podcast Stardust on all of your socials, including Instagram and Facebook. And you can always send us an email at podcaststardust@gmail.com. And we also have our 2 YouTube outlets. So we have the traditional YouTube as well as YouTube Music. So please head over to both of those, like, subscribe, and share those out. And check out our Pinterest boards. We have tons and tons of ideas for everything Star Wars over there. And if you are in need of some new closet swag with Podcast Stardust logos, you can head over to our TeePublic store, where we do have 7 different show logo designs available on everything from t-shirts and sweatshirts to coffee mugs and some home goods, tote bags, everything in between. And every one of those purchases does help to support the show. So please snap a picture if you do get something and let us know about it. And once again, the link to that is in our show notes.
Okay, so upcoming on the show, we are going to be doing a brief return to the Clone Wars on Monday, and then we'll be getting into Visions the following Monday. We're going to do 1 or 2 episodes a week until we're done with that. And then on Wednesday, we are going to be breaking down the Revenge of the Sith novelization, and I'm very excited to talk about that. So make sure you come back for those 2 episodes. We'll be waiting for you. Okay, thanks for listening to episode 959 of Podcast Stars, everyone. Have a great weekend. Happy Halloween one more time. And until next time, may the Force be with you.